Alright, continuing where we left off in the last video. I noticed it was over 20 minutes already and we've talked about how many characters?
Mm.
4. So we're on our 5th character. These are the longer ones, so I'll be quicker with the rest of the stuff. I read through the rest of the patch a little earlier before this video, and this is the brunt of it, and then it can kind of be skimmed through a little more. So hopefully after we get through these last two mega rework, I guess, and to the minor ones, it'll start going a little faster. So anyway, his passive is the same. He got ability icon updates as well. Whoop whoop. Passive is the same, kind of does the same type thing, but it's a little bit different. Rather than being 8% of the target's maximum health over 4 seconds, it's 2% over 4 seconds per stack, and it stacks up to 3 times, I think. Let's see here. Per stack. Yes. Okay, there it is. That's what I was looking for. I was just looking for the context on it because I know I read it earlier. 3 stacks, 2% of their maximum health per stack, and upon reaching maximum stacks, Blaze detonates in a large area around the target, which the detonation damage does 12 to 16% of the target's maximum health at levels 1 to 9, and then 1.5% of the target's maximum health per 100 ability power that you have. And then you can't stack Blaze on targets that have exploded in the last 4 seconds. So your passive ends up actually being able to do a lot of damage as long as you're able to get those stacks off to actually reach max stacks there. So that ends up kind of being scary. The Q damage, a lot of his damage overall in his kit went down to kind of make way for that. The Q damage went down a little bit base, and then the ratio went down by 0.1, and the stun duration also went down by half a second. Um, Pillar of Flame actually has a cooldown reduction per level now that it didn't before. It was just static, and the mana cost per level is down at 10 at every level, not per level, sorry. It's 10 mana less on that spell. And the E does less damage, has less of an ability power ratio, but has 2 seconds off the cooldown at any level. And then his ultimate also a little bit less damage, a little bit less ability power ratio, but it prioritizes detonating Blaze on champions, meaning it'll prioritize champions with 2 stacks, and then 1 stack, and then 0 stacks in an attempt to trigger the passive to explode. And it also briefly slows enemies for 30, 45, and 60% slow. It doesn't say right here, so I haven't looked into it that much. What briefly slows? I don't like this whole scientific definition. How long does it slow them? Approximately briefly. It's like okay. I'm just gonna go look on Wikipedia. Thanks for that. Thanks for the descriptive tip there. Last of the major ones, Vel'Koz. I think this one looks actually really cool for what he can do and what role he will fill with what he can do now. So let's see here. The passive does less damage later throughout the game. It's 2 less damage at the early levels, but that doesn't really matter. But at later levels, it is 36 less damage. And that's true damage. So when you proc it, it does 36 less true damage. However, none of that really matters because you now have a 0.4 AP ratio on it. So if you have just under 100 AP, you'll be back to normal. And anything over 100 AP, which is easy to get even as a support, you'll be doing more damage with your passive. The Q actually will refund mana if the unit is killed. So for farming, basically, I mean, if you're refunding mana consistently by killing champions, you probably don't care about the mana because you have so much money anyway. But it refunds 50 of the mana cost for each unit killed, up to a maximum of 150. So I'm assuming it can hit something and then spread out and hit 2 other things with that. And then you can actually get mana back if you can get your geometries correct. The W, AP ratio on the first hit down by 0.1, AP ratio on the second hit down by a little over 0.1. So they're taking some of the base damage, not base, I guess, the scaling damage off of the actual magic damage that does to make room for all the true damage he gets. 0.2 AP ratio off of the E. I mean, E did damage before, and it was nice to have the damage, and that 0.2 ratio will definitely be felt, but the E was more about setting them up and keeping them where you wanted them to be. Here's where his kit is really interesting with the whole... Oh, Look at that. I was, let me mute that really quick here. I'll just kind of have that in the background. I was in queue testing how long it was going to take to have the queue pop. That was disgustingly long. We have a midday queue. I won't even mention how long it is. That's not the purpose of this video. But anyway, deconstructed champions will become researched for the next 7 seconds and refreshed by basic attacks and abilities. Lifeform Disintegration Ray deals true damage to research targets instead of magic damage. So his ult no longer just keeps proccing the passive over and over for the ticks and refreshing the true damage over and over. It actually just does full true damage to any research target. So you actually have to set them up to be researched. You can have multiple people researched. As well through this. It'll be hard to juggle the stacks on a lot of people unless you're popping the ult off right away. A lot of people got hit with your abilities all AoE'd down. But if you can imagine if like their team gets hit by an E while standing in a W and like 3 people get researched and you just drop your ult on them and it hits for true damage, the base damage on the ultimate for the full channel is 950. That's base. If it's a research target, 950 true damage. It also, instead of having a 0.6 AP ratio, it has a 1 AP ratio. So those AP ratios he lost other places in his kit are restored in the R, and they will still do that magic damage if you don't have the researched on the target. But if you do, then every point of your ability power for the duration of that channel is going to be doing true damage. So imagine, say you have 500 ability power and you ult someone, and your ult is level 3. You have the potential of doing 1450 true damage. That's like an entire AD carry's life pool right there. They'll die before that because you've had to have hit them with your other abilities, obviously. But think about like a super beefy frontline target that has like 300 something armor, 200 something MR, like over 3,000, approaching 4,000 health. And all of the sudden your passive procs on them, and then your ult procs on them, and they just took 2,000 true damage. All of a sudden he's not so scary anymore. So I think that's gonna be interesting to see and feel really broken when it actually does work out for the Vel'Koz. Here is the minor mage updates. I'm just gonna rifle through these. Anivia, lower AP ratio on the Q, but the stun duration has actually gone up 0.1 per level to be half a second longer at level 5, and the slow scales with rank of the ultimate, and the damage is a little bit less, keeping in mind that you can double proc it. I'm assuming you can still double proc it, so that's actually 20 base damage less at level 5, and if you get the double proc, that's 40 less base damage. Also, you have a 0.1 AP ratio less, 0.2 AP ratio on a double proc, so a little bit less damage there. The missile speed on the E is longer, and they changed the way the hitboxes line up, so the overall range buff is approximately 35 according to there. I'm just not going to argue with that and go with that. And the Glacial Storm, you can cast it from further, but the radius when you start it out is less than half of what it was. It's 150, and then it grows over time, which is kind of weird looking. It looks really tiny and pathetic when you first cast it, and I guess if you're able to grow it over time, if they're able to stand in it long enough, you're able to get a team fight in that area, it grows back to its normal size and then actually does 50% more damage and slow. And the slow actually now scales up to 40% at max rank. And the reason they couldn't do that before is because it used to slow attack speed, and now it no longer slows attack speed. So it'll just slow your movement speed, but it'll be double at higher rankings, and then triple if from what it was before if you've fully grown the R from its little baby form. Annie's kind of cool here. Her Tibbers now. Well, I'm just going to kind of go over these a little quicker than I have been. Tibbers is more focused on less just killing people with the Tibbers and the actual persistent effect of Tibbers. It does less damage, has less of an AP ratio, less of an aura damage, less of an aura AP ratio. His attack damage is lower, but he has an AP ratio on his attack damage. His attack range is increased, and he can enrage. Ignoring unit collision and gaining 275 bonus attack speed and 100% bonus movement speed running towards a target. It'll kind of feel like Tibbers is a Scion passive. Using Pyromania, so the stun will cause Tibbers to enrage and attack that target. If Annie dies while Tibbers is summoned, Tibbers will regenerate 50% of his missing health, enrage, and try to kill Annie's killer. If not, he'll try and target the lowest health champion near instead, but get pissed off that Annie's dead and not despawn, which is kind of cool. And while out of combat for at least 5 seconds, he gains movement speed when moving towards Annie and regenerates 6% of his max health per second. So it's kind of more about you spawn him and then you keep him alive and like do stuff with him rather than just pushing all of your buttons, rolling your face on the keyboard. And if it worked, it worked. And if it didn't, throw up the surrender vote type play style. Let's move up here. The other changes: fixed a bug where units could be hit if they escape the area on her W. Her stack on her passive now shows as kind of like a resource bar under Annie's health bar, kind of like Jin and his bullets. So it'll be easier for her to see, but more so easier for the opponents to see, because sometimes in a team fight it's hard to see on her little character model a little gray outline of a stun around her. And the shield duration has been lowered to 3 seconds from 5, but it no longer gives resistances. It actually now gives just flat damage reduction. Fantastic. We're going back to this again. 40% flat damage reduction for 3 seconds when her shield is on. Forehead. Resident Sleeper. I don't think that was great. But anyway, for Annie players, that actually will be, if you can well time that, it'll be pretty strong. Fiddlesticks, quality of life changes here. Fiddle will gain Dread after not moving for a second and a half. If he has Dread, moving causes him to gain movement speed, so he gains percentage movement speed based on his level. That'll make it so when he ults, if he hasn't been moving, because he's obviously at the channel for his ult, he'll be able to run around faster after ulting rather than ulting and then having to flash to get to where you want to go to. Because of you have that bonus movement speed, Terrify's range is decreased slightly, but you should be able to get in that range quicker anyway, more efficiently. Drain is less devastating if you have to cancel it right after starting it, because the duration of the cooldown starts after Drain ends. Or sorry, cooldown now begins, yeah, after Drain ends. It used to begin it before, so if you went through the whole Drain, the cooldown would be up again after the Drain was done, but now it's after the Drain ends, but the cooldown is much shorter, so you can kind of move around, reposition without feeling like you're wasting your drain time. Darkwind now bounces 7 times instead of 5 and prioritizes drain targets. So if you're in a big minion wave and you're draining someone, it'll just keep bouncing to them, I'm assuming. That might be pretty annoying to be that target. Although it only silence on the first hit. That change they made a long time ago. And Crowstorm will now cast at maximum range if out of range. What that means is before, if you would cast Crowstorm out of range of where you currently were standing, you would simply walk out of the bush you were standing and walk right up to their team and start ulting once you were in range of where you clicked. Often that didn't work. You'd walk up and start channeling, and then everyone would kill you, and then your team would spam report this person in all chat. So that's a big quality of life thing for lesser experienced fiddles, and probably more experienced fiddles in general as well. Where are we here? Kennen, some quality of life changes here, tidied up. Mark duration is a quarter second shorter. You're probably not going to notice that, but it tidies it up here. First stun unchanged. Additional stuns will stun for 0.5 seconds rather than 0.6 seconds, but the diminishing returns window is now 6 seconds since they were last stunned instead of 7, so you'll be able to stun them for full duration sooner. 5 energy off Q, 5 energy off W. W's range decreased a little bit slightly. And the ultimate change here. So basically what happens now is it does the same amount of damage. There's a damage fall off per bolt because, there's a damage fall off per bolt and the bolts tick slower, but they can hit the same target multiple times. They're not limited to getting hit 3 times. You can hit someone with the 0.5 tick and normalizing it from scaling to actually just being 3 seconds at all ranks. You can get 6 ticks of a bolt on a single champion, even with the diminishing falling off to a minimum of 50% damage. That is still more damage, and it kind of shows you down here that the base damage, maximum per target damage, went from 630 base to 1.2 AP to 788 base, 1.5 AP at max level. It'll end up doing a lot more damage, but you actually have to keep them in it for the full duration, and it only applies the Mark of the Storm stacks for the first 3 hits. So you can't just keep chain stunning everything in sight. I keep trying to scroll down. I keep forgetting that it's a different kind of format style here. On to Swain. His Q, sorry, his passive now gives a little bit more mana. I think it's 3 now, more at early levels, 3 more now at higher levels. His Q is no longer a point-and-click laser bird. It's kind of a laser bird turret that you drop wherever you want to be laser birding, and it will prioritize targets that have torment on it. Your E, the dot. Has an AP ratio per second to make it more easy to see, and it does 100% bonus damage to minions, and it doesn't drop off. Like if you'd use your Q on a minion before, it would, the minion dies, and then your Q is on cooldown. It'll move on to the next minion right after, so gives Swain some wave clear pre-6. Tells you all the stats on it there. His W got some mana decrease, which is nice. Torment lowered the damage on it, but the AP ratio is up. So the base damage lower, AP ratio up. It also made it so the damage amplification is 20% at all levels rather than scaling up to 20%. Not leveling this before felt pretty weak because you were missing out on 12% all damage amplification, even on your auto attacks. But now, since it's 20% at level 1, scaling it makes the damage base go up lower, and it has a 0.1 AP ratio, or a 1 AP ratio. I think that's trying to make it prioritize to maybe getting some levels into Q early, because then you can wave clear more efficiently and not be losing anything from not leveling the E. And the alt, toggling it on and off, 2 seconds longer in between doing that. The mana use per second is a little lower. Healing against minions is 15% instead of 25, but it shoots 5 ravens now instead of 3, so you can heal off minions if there's a bigger wave faster in this scenario. Actually, I think it's the exact same as far as minion healing goes, but this is where I'm confused about. Lesser ravens can't attack the same target for 1 second. That makes it sound like a gigantic nerf if you can only hit an enemy champion 1 time per second with your ravens. Or does each lesser raven of the 5 count as their own lesser raven, so they get hit 5 times per second? And I don't see that being the thing. So I'm not actually sure. Like, I haven't looked into it at all. We'll have to see over time. I'm not sure how to overly feel about that. And honestly, I don't play Swain that much. So, put it bluntly, I don't really care. So we'll move on. Syndra got some pretty big buffs here. Dark Spheres no longer deal 15% bonus damage, but the spheres will last an additional 2 seconds. The Dark Sphere AP ratio went up by 0.15 because they lost that damage there. They were able to put the power over there. Force of Will now grab additional 2 spheres within 400 range of the primary target, increasing the size and slow on the reactivation, which will make it then easier to drop the bomb and then stun everything in sight with with your Scatter the Weak, which now has a lower cooldown at early levels, which will be more effective, and then drop the ult bomb because you can have your spheres for longer periods of time. I've seen a few Syndras, they've done very well. Veigar looks pretty cool, and it also looks pretty cool to be a support now as well. Veigar gains a stack. His new passive is just stacking. It's not on just his Q now. His passive is stacking. Veigar gains a stack of Phenomenal Evil. Phenomenal Evil stacks give 1 ability power per stack. And he gains a stack for striking an enemy champion with an ability. So, as a support, you just go up and you start harassing the enemy. Rather than having to farm to get your AP up, you just harass the enemy and you get AP for doing that. And your AD carry can take all the farm, and no fights are breaking out in bot lane over my supports taking farm. Grants a stack of Phenomenal Evil on a kill. Grants 2 for large minions and monsters. So the Q still works the same way. It'll give you stacks for farming minions. It'll also give you stacks for hitting champions, so you're no longer wanting to only use it on minions early to get those stacks up. You can use it to harass and get minions and gets the same reward, unless, of course, it's a big minion because it'll give you 2 instead. No longer grants the ability power ratio on takedowns, and the mana cost is lower, a lot lower at early levels, which will be nice for him. Dark Matter, mana cost down. Event Horizon, mana cost down. And his ult no longer scales with the enemy's ability power. Instead, it scales on its base damage based on the percentage of missing health on the champion, and the AP ratio also scales up from 0.75 to 1.5 based on the target's missing health as well. So yeah, he still wants to stack. He still wants to get all of that extra damage from stacking his AP up throughout the game, but you're not confined to only being able to get it off minions. You can do it by harassing and actually playing the game as well, which I think is fun. Cool, a better design. Viktor, bunch of changes here. I'm kind of just going to skip through it kind of quick and just kind of go Q got changed around a little bit. You can go and check it out if you want. The death ray is what I'm going to look at here. The way the death ray works now is has a 0.5 AP ratio rather than a 7. The augmented ratio is 0.7 now. Augmented damage is not 100% of death ray's damage. It has its actual augmented damage there. No longer reduces detonation damage by 60% against targets already hit by death ray. The death ray and aftershock damage is now higher base and higher AP ratio. And the big change here is the augmented explosion delay is higher as well, so you have more time to get away. But the initial laser speed is increased quite substantially. It's a lot harder to dodge. And his ultimate does a ridiculously large amount of damage, 1300 base with a 2.3 AP ratio rather than just under 2 AP ratio with 980 base from before. However, the tick rate is gone from 0.5 seconds to 2, so you actually have to keep them in the storm to get that huge damage. So you're more rewarded for longer fights and actually being able to keep them where you want them to be. But he'll be doing a ton of damage. Xerath and Ziggs both got some buffs here. The stun will stun for shorter if they're close to you, but for longer if they're further away from you on Xerath. And the damage on his ultimate is a little lower. The range increased by 10%. Impact radius increased by 10. Delay between shots a little higher. It zooms him out kind of like a Jhin ult now. But he actually gains one more shot per level of his ultimate. So at level 5 ult, you can shoot 5 shots, which is kind of cool. So I think that's a really nice change for him. It also could be really devastating to a Xerath's self-confidence when you have to miss 5 now instead of only being able to miss 3 if you miss all of them at level 5 or at level 3 of your ult. That would be really sad to have happen. Ziggs here, really big buffs to Ziggs as far as his overall turret taking capability. The passive now has the passive ratio goes up to 0.5 AP rather than 0.35, and the cooldown on ability use that makes his passive come up quicker is actually higher now. The amount of cooldown that you get back for using abilities, which is pretty substantial actually. It let's see here. Sorry, my league queue finally popped 47 minute queue, fantastic. So it'll give you 6 seconds back at higher level, which will make it so your short fuse can be up faster, which can make it so you can take turrets faster to get it in range for your W, which now will execute turrets. You're not typically leveling your W until last on Ziggs, as far as I understand. You're definitely not leveling it first. But even at level 1, it's at 25%, and it scales up to 35%, and that percentage is the maximum of health to instantly destroy a turret. So if a turret, you're level 5 on Ziggs with your W, turret's under 35% health, and you hit it with your Sastral Charge, boom, it's dead. Instantly executed the turret. Not that hard to get it into range when your AP ratio on your passive has gone up, and you get your passive more quickly. Turrets are going to be fucking scared. That's all I gotta say. It's gonna be a bad time to be a turret. That's for sure. And his ultimate has a lower cooldown that scales as the game goes on, but it no longer deals double damage to minions. And the overall context was they wanted to promote Ziggs blowing stuff up rather than defending turrets, his own turrets by wave clearing with his ult and whatnot. So I have a feeling they're definitely going to meet that target of blowing stuff up with that. But anyway, that's all the minor mage changes here. The next... Tickle in my throat, sorry. The next ones will be going into the mage itemization, and I'm just going to cut this part of the video off here, and we should be able to rifle through the rest of the patch with a third part here. I was hoping to do it in 2 parts, but I didn't want to skip... I skipped some stuff. I didn't want to skip any more than I did. So we'll see you in part 3.